Well, turning now to some breaking news. President Joe Biden is just moments away from touching down in Arizona as he begins his 4-day Southwest trip.
Team 12's Bram Resnick is on the ground live from the Grand Canyon National Park Airport. And Bram, what's the significance of the president's trip specifically? Why is he coming here?
Well, I do want to warn you, Mark, we see Air Force One on approach to Grand Canyon Airport. Should be landing within minutes, so we'll cut away to that. I think you can see a shot of Air Force One right now. President's coming to designate a national monument of about 1 million acres on the north and south sides of Grand Canyon National Park. Uranium mining will be banned in that area. That has been a long-sought goal of tribes here in the area. I spoke to one tribal leader a few minutes ago. She told me she never thought this day would come. Uranium has a legacy of poisoning tribal members, poisoning the environment, going back to the Cold War era when uranium mining was done on the Navajo Nation. So this national monument on the north and south sides of the canyon is expected. We're expecting the president to announce this tomorrow. It hasn't been formally announced, but that will ban future uranium mining. There's still a couple mines within the boundaries. They are not doing any work. They are not producing any ore. So it's a huge day for the tribes here, something our members of Congress have worked at for several years. And right now, Air Force One is about to touch down at Grand Canyon Airport. This runway is as long as the runway at Joint Andrews Base. Air Force One's home, and Air Force One has touched down. President Biden has landed at Grand Canyon Airport. In a big cloud of dust, they must have had some spectacular views on the approach. Looks like they came in from the north. They would have gone right over the canyon. Quite a view. The last president who flew Air Force One here was President Barack Obama back in 2009. He did it like the tourists do. He brought the family on Air Force One to visit the Grand Canyon. They had a great time. Everybody made a great fuss over it. Now Joe Biden coming again for an announcement tomorrow. We expect him to announce the designation of a national monument near the Grand Canyon. There is opposition to it, I should note. Uranium miners are opposed. They say it's not necessary. They say uranium mining is safer today than it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Some ranchers are opposed. They're concerned about grazing rights and things like that. The national monument would not get in the way of grazing rights, we are told. Mark?
Bram, how much of this do you think, with an election year coming up, is for optics versus an important reason to actually come to Arizona?
It's clear to me there's a lot of substance to this. This isn't just some issue that he's decided to take care of. This is something that's been an issue for quite a while. President Obama back in 2012 imposed a moratorium on uranium mining in this area for 20 years. President Donald Trump back in 2018 tried to overturn that and failed. President Biden decided to make it permanent by designating this monument. At the same time, we have to note, Kamala Harris was here just a month ago speaking to a tribal nation close to Phoenix, connecting with those voters. Tomorrow, President Biden will speak to a large group of tribal members who are voters too. In a close election, those votes count. I have to say, though, I can't recall a White House getting this close to tribes and tribal issues in a long, long time.
And is that, Bram, because they feel that the tribal members are an untapped voting bloc that they need to try to get within the tent with another election, probably against Donald Trump coming up?
Well, ask any candidate, statewide candidate, they know they're a voting bloc, particularly the Navajo. They're a voting bloc they might be able to grow. You know, what they say, doing good by doing good. It's certainly a political opportunity as well as a policy opportunity. I do want to add that Congressman Raul Grijalva of Tucson is here. He is one of the co-sponsors of legislation to create the monument. Congressman Ruben Gallego of Phoenix also here, both Democrats. Tomorrow, we do expect to see Senator Kyrsten Sinema up there with President Biden, or at least in the crowd. She sponsored legislation in the Senate along with Senator Mark Kelly. So there's a large group of Arizona members of Congress who got behind this. Sinema and Grijalva, the two most prominent ones. Mark?
Graham, I wanted to ask you about the lay of the land there. You're at the Red Butte Airport. A lot of Arizonans probably haven't even ever heard of that airport.
Well, I need to correct you there. We're at the Grand Canyon Airport right now. Red Butte is an older airport that's a little bit a ways from here. You wouldn't see the Grand Canyon Airport from the road, and you can't even see the canyon from here. It's just an airport that gets a lot of use by the airplanes that fly people over the rim, helicopters that fly them over the rim. I should add Marine One is here, so they're ready to fly the president somewhere close, I would presume, to the event tomorrow on Tuesday. That hasn't formally been announced yet, so we're still waiting on that.
Yeah, and this is part of it's part of a much larger trip, right, Bram? He still has stops in New Mexico and Utah as well.
Good point. It's a big southwest swing. He'll be going to New Mexico on Wednesday and then Utah on Thursday, I believe. A big western swing. Utah's an interesting state. It's pretty red, and you have to wonder what the president sees there. Nevertheless, it's on his list. They think there's some opportunities, it appears. I had to point out that Air Force One is now taxiing slowly toward us. It is ultimately going to come to a halt right in front of our camera position. I would say it's at least about 100 yards away and closing fast as it gets ready to taxi to the end of this flight from suburban Maryland.
Yeah, Bram, and Biden should be pretty well rested. I've been seeing photos of him vacationing at the beach here recently over the past week or so.
He was at one of his favorite spots, the Delaware beaches. On a personal note, that was one of my wife's favorite spots when they were kids living in the Washington, D.C. area. It's a great beach community there. He celebrated the Houston Astros World Series victory at the White House earlier today before heading out here to Arizona. It'll be just a short swing, we expect. And there you saw Air Force One going by. It's going to make a U-turn, and then we should shortly see the President of the United States descending from Air Force One to get his Arizona trip underway.
Yeah.
Bram, President Biden won Arizona last time in a very much contested and, as you know, discussed, controversial election, at least in his mind, an election that he thinks he won. I'm sorry, President Trump thinks that he won. I'm wondering how important this visit is, and is this the first of many, do you think, by the Biden team as they try to make sure that they have Arizona in the next election?
I would expect more visits. I was told to expect more visits. We had, again, Kamala Harris here last month, Joe Biden here this month. This is the August recess for Congress, so members of Congress are coming out here to join the president. We are on the map. That's clear. In Republican minds, they don't think they need to win Arizona in order to take the Senate, but Joe Biden definitely needs to win Arizona in order to take the White House. And I should say Republicans don't think Republicans need Arizona to win the White House as well, but they're just kind of hard to see what kind of push they're going to make here.
Bram,
it's hard to see, especially depending on who the Senate candidate is. Yep.
Bram, I checked the approval ratings today for Biden. Right now, they're like the approval ratings for Biden are at about 46% approval, 52% disapproval. How big of an impact for voters do you think these visits make? Do they make a difference at all?
That's a good question. It's hard to know who gets exposed to them, who knows about them in this busy media world we live in, where you're bombarded with messages and video by the second. I think in this case, what the White House is doing is pursuing a very specific group with a lot of common interests. And I think it's safe to say that would have a big impact. I remember when Bernie Sanders, then a Democratic Senate candidate for president in 2016, made a visit to the Navajo Nation. That was the first visit ever by a presidential candidate to the Navajo Nation. That made an impact. That was a big deal. That was national news. This monument may only matter to folks here in the West, may be a parochial issue in that way, and it certainly does matter to a lot of Arizonans, certainly not just tribal members. But if you want to look at a specific block of voters, it's clear to me it matters a lot to tribal members.
Not to trivialize this visit and the importance of the issue, Bram, but do you think that part of the president's motivation for making this trip is to contrast with what's going on in Washington right now with former President Trump battling his third indictment and possibly later this week getting a fourth indictment from the state of Georgia?
Well, yes and no. I think those poll numbers you pointed out a minute ago get the problem. The economy is doing very well. And President Biden is pointing to several pieces of legislation passed on his watch that he says are helping make that happen. And that's one of the things he wants to point out on this trip, the impact of his investments in clean energy and infrastructure and really the future of the country. And he does have several pieces of legislation he can point to. The question is that going to move the needle on his approval rating and move the needle with voters? And I have to say, it's getting a little loud now. Air Force One is about 50 yards away from us. I'm going to have to take a little break.
Boy, what a sight. No matter where you stand politically, seeing that beautiful plane with United States of America written on the side, it is still, even after seeing it countless times, a magnificent sight.
Yeah, I've seen it before at Sky Harbor.
Yeah.
I've gone there specifically just to see it. You have to see it in person to really understand like the full scale of how ginormous that plane is and just how impressive it is.
And if you're just tuning in, President Biden on the ground in Arizona tonight at the Grand Canyon. He's expected to create a new national monument on more than 1 million acres of land adjacent to the Grand Canyon National Park.
That's right, trying to preserve those areas from being
Hey,
mined
Mark
for
and Caribe,
uranium.
can I point something out?
Sure.
Can I point something out to you?
Yeah, go
We're
ahead.
accustomed to seeing the big stair steps. We're accustomed to seeing the big stair steps being wheeled up to Air Force One, and the president making his exit from the front door just below the cockpit. Joe Biden uses the back door right behind that engine there, the engine closest to us. So he'll be emerging, we believe, from the back door. There is no large stair being moved to the front door. That's been his habit lately, I suppose, a concession to age. Can't blame him. It's a long walk down those stairs. We expect him eventually to emerge from the back staircase. I see no movement by the larger stairs to the front door.
Right.
Or maybe is he Garrett? Or, I'm going to ask our photographer. Is he coming out the front staircase here?
Yeah.
Perhaps the front staircase.
This is a lower staircase than the upper one.
Okay.
Bram, what do you
So
know?
it appears he's coming out the forward staircase.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
So what
Yeah,
we're seeing,
it appears he's coming out the forward one.
the internal staircase within
Yeah.
Air Force One, as opposed
The shorter one.
as opposed to what you were talking about, Bram, which is the scene we normally see with the big set of stairs being rolled up to the front door of Air Force One. And,
Right.
Just momentarily, as you
And-
watch our live coverage here on 12 News, we should see the president coming out.
Bram, what do you know about the schedule? I mean, he's landing
Yeah.
this evening, so what is he doing for the rest of the evening, and what's he doing tomorrow?
Don't know. They have not officially released the schedule. We know he's going to make a big announcement, the big announcement of the monument. That's expected to happen tomorrow. A lot of tribal members are in town for that. And we know it's just in town for that, and we'll just have to wait to get our formal advisory on where and when that's going to be. And you're seeing the Beast pull up to the front steps of Air Force One, kind of a country beast, an SUV, not the Cadillac, the big bolt-up Cadillac we're used to seeing, and the large convoy of vans behind as well. I count 5 vans. Looks like a military vehicle behind. There's usually an ambulance as well. I don't see that. And we expect the president to emerge at any moment. To the right of that SUV, if you can see it, is Ruben Gallego, Congressman Ruben Gallego in the dark suit, Congressman Raul Grijalva in the lighter suit. They are waiting to greet the president on the tarmac. Congressman Gallego, staff told me earlier, he will be asking the president to give FEMA a nudge about declaring heat emergencies when the heat gets too extreme. That's his little message to the president.
We had to point out that even our local politicians have to take a selfie of the moment. Did you see them a moment ago?
Yeah, Congressman Gallego.
Yeah, they took a selfie together. In both of them, obviously, Graham.
Let's see what happens once. Yes.
I was going to say, in both the two of them have also.
Go ahead.
They have also been really pushing this monument as well.
Yes, they are among the group of Arizona senators and members of Congress who have been pushing this monument. You can say the lead has been taken by Raul Grijalva. He's been pushing for this for at least 8 years from his Tucson district. He's had a high-profile role on the Environment Committee. Oh, I'm going to stop, and there's the President of the United States descending the staircase. Shaking hands with Congressman Raul Grijalva. And a hug for Raul Grijalva, longtime congressman. And another hug for Ruben Gallego. It's like a warm exchange of views there, discussion.
Bram, it is 9:45
I should add that
on the East Coast. So getting a little bit late for the president. Does he have anything official, to your knowledge, on his agenda for tonight?
Nothing. We know nothing about. There's nothing on his official schedule that we're aware of. I haven't seen anything. It's possible I may have missed it, but I have not seen anything about what's happening tonight. I asked Congressman Gallego about it. He said he didn't know. So we'll have to leave it at that for now.
Graham, you have covered so many.
I should point out. I'm sorry. I did want to point out Governor Katie Hobbs isn't here, but she will be at the event tomorrow, where we expect the monument, the national monument, to be announced.
Graham, I was going to say, you've covered so many presidential visits. Does this ever get old to see this site?
No, never. Never. It's something, and just watching the approach of Air Force One, maybe it's because I'm a guy, I don't know, a relatively new American, still gives me chills. It gives me chills. It's a powerful symbol of this nation. We need more and even more powerful symbols right now. But I know it's a big hunk of metal, but I think it's a powerful symbol.
Well, there's that big Suburban. President now inside, Secret Service waiting outside, and in just a few moments, the beast, as they call it, will be on the road. And we have some special guests standing by to give us some context on this visit. But we wanted to bring you this live coverage of Air Force One arriving in Arizona. The president's second trip here since he became president. The first was back in December of 2022 when he was here to visit the construction site of the TSMC microchip plant in Phoenix. And now here he is back to talk about dedicating 1 million acres of land adjacent to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, and the purpose of this monument is to preserve some sensitive areas in addition to permanently withdrawing some of those areas from uranium mining. They're also trying to protect some underground aquifers and some drinking water to be protected there for some of the local communities. So it covers a pretty big area, about 1.1 million acres surrounding the Grand Canyon. And of course, this is just one stop of a bigger trip that Biden has planned. He'll be making visits in New Mexico. He'll be going on to Utah as well. He'll be talking about climate change, clean energy, and also some veterans benefits during his trip out to the West.
And the president is on the move. Bram, any last
It's going to be an exciting election year, I'll tell you that. And this is not the last you've seen of Joe Biden in Arizona.
No, I would tell you that the administration needs it to carry Arizona, and he will be back here before it's all said and done. Graham, thanks.
All right, we are now joined in studio. We have two special guests with us to discuss President Biden's visit. We have Aaron Lieberman, a former Democratic candidate for Arizona governor, and Christine Jones is a former Republican candidate for governor. Both of you, thanks so much for joining us here in the studio and for waiting along with us for the president to arrive for quite a while. What do you guys make of this trip? We'll start with you, Christine.
Well, I think you guys made the point earlier that no matter how many times you see Air Force One land, and I think Aaron and I both have been there in person, as have you, it's a really special sight. And regardless of whether you support the president or not, it is the president of the United States, and he is here to visit us, and that's really special. I do agree with Bram in one sense that we will see a lot of Joe Biden in the coming months because Arizona is a swing state, and whether you're a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter, and whether you think he won it or not, he does need Arizona to be the deciding factor in another victory. So I think we'll see a lot of him. I do want to talk about the monument, but Aaron, I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
No. Look, I think Arizona is very narrowly divided. Joe Biden barely won. That's just the reality of it, and every single vote is going to make a difference. You know, when this trip was originally announced last week, what I heard it was going to be about was in part the Inflation Reduction Act, the whole clean, green energy effort. They're now focusing a lot on the monument, and that's awesome. It's really important to the tribes. But I think there's a huge story that Arizona has been a massive beneficiary of, which is that kind of clean energy jobs package. And I think that's meant a lot to anybody who's, withstood all the heat we've had in Arizona this summer.
I have to ask you both a question. How can a president come to Arizona and not visit the border when it is such an important issue for those of us who live here, especially for people who live near the border? We know that immigration is a huge topic for the upcoming election. If you're here in Arizona, is it a mistake not to visit the border?
Well, I think I certainly visited the border when I was running statewide. I know Aaron did. It is a very different experience to go there in person and actually see human beings walking across a line on a map. Obviously, they're trying to do it to gain a better life, but it is something that's important and personal to the people of Arizona. I think both Harris and Biden have made a mistake not going there. But also, Mark, why not come to Phoenix? Why not go to the 5th largest city in the country if you're going to be in the state and you're making this broad, sweeping trip to the Southwest? It is a little bit of a backhand to the voters in Phoenix that he absolutely needs to be successful here.
I mean, we all understand that in 2023 and upcoming 24, optics are huge. And to your point, maybe this wasn't a swing and a miss. Aaron?
Look, I love the Grand Canyon. I think it's a great place to go in the summer, and there's millions of Americans who do that too. I don't think it's ever crazy for a president to come visit the Grand Canyon. I think it's awesome to have him here. I suspect, like you guys are talking about, we'll see future return trips, and they'll kind of check all of those additional boxes that they need to right now. But I'm a big fan of the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon in the summer, that's a pretty apple pie, all-America setting for me, and I thought the plane looked great touching down up there.
Yeah, so speaking of the Grand Canyon, what do you think the significance really is of this new national monument there?
Well, it's hard to think of this as not being political, and the timing is a little bit suspect, right? We've had other presidents in the past that have looked at this and instead of designating a monument have maybe put in some environmental restrictions, but let's focus on what's actually being done here. We're talking about designating 1.1 million acres. Okay, that is larger than the state of Rhode Island, approaching the size of the president's home state of Delaware. More than 50% of Arizona will now be under federal control. And that is a big deal, particularly for people who are in the clean energy space. And I think Mr. Lieberman probably can talk about that a little bit, but we're talking about designating a massive piece of property around the Grand Canyon, which will be limited basically for time and all eternity against any kind of mining or drilling or development. And that's potentially a problem for Arizona.
How about you, Aaron?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say if you ask the average American, average Arizonan, should we be drilling for uranium in the Grand Canyon, they're going to say no. I mean, we want to preserve the Grand Canyon. It's literally a wonder of the world. I think to Christine's point from the political dimension, there's clearly an element, all of our tribes, not just the tribes, not just the Havasu, but all of the tribes feel a deep connection to the Grand Canyon and will be touched by this. Again, these elections come down to little tiny slivers of voters, and if you can get more of the tribal voters to turn out because you came here and made this monument, that could quite literally be the difference in getting President Biden reelected. I agree with what Bram said. There's actually a lot of substance to this. There's a lot of substance. I'm working on the clean energy world right now. There's a lot of substance to what they've done with that Inflation Reduction Act. There's 13,000 new jobs in Arizona just because of it. I saw Congressman Stanton put out something today, 6,000 in the East Valley alone. These are things that actually matter to Arizonans in terms of getting our environment under control and trying to start battling some of this incredible heat that we've had. I think seeing the president show up and be here in the state is always a good thing.
How crucial do you think the tribal voting bloc is, and can you convert those by going up there?
I think it's very critical, and we've had some politicians in Arizona who are more successful at this than others. Obviously, former Senator McCain was very close with the Native American communities. It's very critical, I think, to Aaron's point, in a very narrow case, when you literally need a few thousand extra votes to appeal to those people, and getting any community of an interest group out to vote is critically important. And this might be the thing that pushes people over the edge to say he is really taking this seriously. Let's band together. Let's get tribal voters to the polls, and this could really actually help.
I think, honestly, especially for Democrats, you can really make a compelling case that the Navajo reservation elected Governor Hobbs was a key constituency, and getting her over in that very narrow margin probably really helped Biden get there. Just do the math. I think there's 300 Navajo living on the reservation right now. Those elections are complicated. You got to go somewhere to vote for your tribal elections and somewhere else to vote for the federal elections. Right. If you get thousands of more people to kind of take that additional walk, that can absolutely be a game changer.
Yeah. Okay, so last question for you guys before we head out. Do you think Biden can win Arizona again in 2024?
Well, can we just point out that it's ridiculous that we're going to have another Biden-Trump election? But putting that aside, I think it's anybody's game. The Republicans are serious about taking Arizona back, and the state chairman now is much less about election conspiracy theories and much more about winning elections. So I think it's down to the wire here, and I think Arizona decides the presidential race.
I think that last part is definitely true, and I think Biden can beat Trump. I mean, the reality is it's really clear. We could have the state chairman say whatever he wants. The guy at the top of the ticket, all he wants to talk about is the election 4 years ago. We have a president in the White House who's actually trying to move forward and do things to move the state and the country forward. Arizona's close, but if you have an extreme candidate like Donald Trump and a guy who's just trying to get things done like President Biden, that's the type of Democrat that can win in Arizona. He's done it once, and I think he'll do it again.
Aaron Lieberman, Christine Jones, thank you both. You really helped give us some context about the importance of this visit and what lies ahead in 2024. We certainly appreciate it.